morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, which today is comic book movie news free. Yes, I've seen the comments from a few of you, but a very vocal few of you, that you wish I would cover news outside of the comic book movie genre. And I totally get where you're coming from, so today I found 3 such stories, which will not only be a welcome change of pace for you, but I think just a nice change of pace for all of us, because we all enjoy movies of many varieties. It doesn't always have to be about comic books, and there are some good ones coming up, which we'll discuss today. However, take heart, the viewer question is related to comic book movies. So we have a little bit of flavoring for those of you who would like to have it on a daily basis. All right, so the first story has to do with animation, another very popular genre these days, which is certainly on fire. We had the Lego movie, we have Frozen, of course. How to Train Your Dragon 2 is coming out next weekend. We're seeing a lot of the old original players do quite well and thrive here, but we're seeing new players on the board as well. And one such player is Sony Animation. They had a very wobbly start, but they did quite well with Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 1 and 2, and Hotel Transylvania was a big win for them, to the point where they're making a sequel. But it looks like they're also going to expand on that brand with the announcement of another animated movie in development, which has an even more awesome boost of power to it besides the backing of Hotel Transylvania's success, which I'll get to in a moment, although you'll know what it is if you saw the title of this video. But anyway, what's the animated movie? It's Medusa. Yes, clearly Maleficent is already beginning to influence other studios. I questioned in movie math how long it would be before other studios got in on this, because clearly there's a lot of money to be made after Frozen and Maleficent with this kind of, fantasy girl power new genre that's emerging. And Sony Animation, sure enough, is the first one to jump on the bandwagon with Disney. So they're going to reimagine Medusa as another misunderstood villain, where the blurb is that apparently she's a very popular girl in ancient Greece, and she's working very hard to be popular. It's not effortless for her. She's just trying to survive socially. I don't know how sympathetic that will be, but anyway, some of the gods become jealous of her popularity, and they turn her into this, to the creature of mythology with the snake hair, and turn anyone to stone who looks directly at her. And so she has to go on a quest with other cute, adorable mythological creatures to free herself of this curse, but yet at the same time learn that what makes us different is what actually makes us stronger. So you see a little bit, I think, of some Mean Girls element, kind of a double entendre on the villain. There's the classic villain, but then there's also the high school villain. I see potential here. I wonder what the age range is going to play to. I think that to some degree this seems like a very young story, but I think Medusa is a cool character, and I'd be interested to see what they're going to do with it. Now, some of you might think, well, Grace, what are you, crazy? Have you drank the Kool-Aid that Sony is serving? Why would you be behind this idea when it's clearly such a ripoff of Maleficent? Well, I would say it's due to the talent involved. Not only do I think Sony did a fantastic job with Hotel Transylvania, if you still haven't seen that movie, you can go out and download it right now or stream it. It's quite good. It's very atmospheric, very well done. But the person that they're going to have spearhead the Medusa movie is Lauren Faust. Does that name sound familiar? Well, if you're not a Brony or a My Little Pony fan, that's who it is. She is the creative talent behind My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, the incredibly popular reboot of that brand. And also, she was also the person behind DC Nation's Super Best Friends Forever. That's the Wonder Woman, Batgirl, and Supergirl little animated shorts, which were cute, but of course they were so short, I don't really think they ever had the chance to develop into anything. But they got quite a bit of publicity for DC Nation. I think it was perhaps one of the most publicized things about DC Nation. But as we all know, DC Nation continues to struggle to this day. Doesn't even exist anymore. I'm not sure. I don't really tune into those animated shows. And I believe last I heard Beware the Batman's on like at 3 in the morning because they know you're just DVRing it. But anyway, Lauren Faust, very successful so far, and also in her ability, I think, to bring in male viewers to what would seem stereotypically to be female-oriented content. So that's a very exciting skill set, I think, for Sony to apply here. And also, this is great news for Lauren Faust, as it's her first animated film. So very exciting. She will be joining the ranks of Jennifer Yu Nelson, who became the very first woman to helm an animated movie with Kung Fu Panda 2. She'll be back for Kung Fu Panda 3. And of course, Jennifer Lee, who co-directed Frozen and was the first woman to co-direct a movie over at Disney Animation. Brenda Chapman was supposed to be involved as a director on Brave, and she of course got to go up there and get that Oscar, but she was largely kicked off of that film. So I think not officially is Jennifer Lee the first woman to direct a movie at Disney, but unofficially, she really is. To actually have her work reach the big screen instead of be changed all up after she's kicked off the movie unceremoniously. But at least Brenda Chapman still got her Oscar. But anyway, I think this sounds like a great idea. I'm a little nervous a little bit about the script person, Todd Alcott. He teamed up with somebody else who has basically reality TV background, but Todd Alcott's background is Ants, that old DreamWorks animation movie back when they were still trying to find their footing, and then The Giver, which of course we don't know how that is, but the trailers so far are not quite promising. I did see some of your requests to review The Giver trailer 2. I will do that over the weekend, I believe so, or early next week. I'm sorry that I haven't gotten to that yet. But I think this sounds great. I'm curious, now that you know the talent involved, are you a little bit more interested in Medusa, or do you still think it's just a Maleficent ripoff for kids, for little kids even perhaps? But we'll see. As I said, a lot of men, exactly, men, not just boys, but adults of all ages and all adults. I was going to say of all ages and all genders, but that's everyone enjoys My Little Pony. It's a huge phenomenon. And so I think if Lauren Faust can deliver again for Sony Animation, that would be very exciting indeed. All right, so that's the first story of the day. The second story is that Will Smith looks like he might have found another project. And I think it's a great project, but I think he's taken the wrong role in it. So what is it? Well, Will Smith, apparently he dropped out of another film. He has an opening in his slate, and it looks like the movie that he's going to take instead is this movie about the scandal about concussions in professional football. And that apparently the league owners and the people who run the league, I'm sorry, I'm not a big sports person. I think the people who own the team are different from those who actually, like the commissioner and stuff, who run the NFL. But anyway, the powers that be apparently knew for a long time about the dangers of concussions to their players and really did not do anything to protect or to, take care of those players after they've been injured. And of course, this was just in the news recently, as even Dan Marino has filed a lawsuit against the NFL. He hasn't specified any personal injuries, although that might be part of the closed part of the case, sealed. But he is suing the NFL for saying that they put him and other players in danger. So Will Smith wants to star in this movie based on a GQ article called Game Brain. So if you're interested in this story, you can go and look that up. And he would play Dr. Bennett Omalu, the forensic neuropathologist who single-handedly, this is the description, made the first discovery of CTE in a pro NFL player and brought awareness to the public. Now, I think it would be great to see, I've talked before about the whitewashing of the role in Extraordinary Measures that Harrison Ford plays. That's the Harrison Ford film with Brendan Fraser about, finding a cure for a disease for Brendan Fraser's kids. And in real life, as I've pointed out, the doctor that Harrison Ford is playing was Asian. So it was really a shame to rob that community of a great scientific hero, a potential scientific hero for them. Because, of course, while that doesn't mean that original doctor doesn't still exist, it's not as wide known as when you see it in a film. I mean, I think that visual reference is important for not only just the community, but its younger members who are trying to decide what their possibility, what they could potentially be as an adult. And you need to see it in action somewhere else to make it seem more plausible to you. Now, thank goodness for dreamers who don't need that example, but it always helps to have an example and to increase the odds of people following in those person's footsteps. So to have Will Smith play this, neuropathologist, I think I could see the benefit there, and I could see why he's interested in the role. But if Will Smith wants an Oscar, this isn't the role that will win it for him. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I would say the Oscar bait role here is going to be the players who have the neurological damage. And I don't see why Will Smith couldn't play that role, because obviously some of them are older. Now, I feel actually a little bit bad talking about Oscar bait and such when people are suffering legitimately. So I think just as long as the movie gets made, that will be wonderful. People are likening it to maybe The Insider with Russell Crowe and the Michael Mann film. But of course, that film didn't really connect and wasn't really the awards contender I think that anybody originally envisioned it to be. So I hope this movie is more successful. I think Will Smith can do very well in this kind of drama. The Pursuit of Happiness, I still think, is a phenomenal film. 7 Pounds, not so much, so he's hit or miss. But this seems like it could be a potential hit for Smith, and I think it's a good way to go with his career after Earth, which really didn't help him or Jaden Smith. But a great choice, and I think it's a movie that should be made. This is a significant problem, and it's, shame on the NFL for not taking care of it. I'm glad they took care of the Donald Sterling situation so quickly, but so what if it's not a huge public relations scandal? It's not important to them. The well-being of their players is not their top priority. It's just another example as to why the Mr. Potter and It's a Wonderful Life is not an exaggeration, that some people really are that evil. All right, so that's the second story of the day. The third story comes out of China. This is actually a very interesting story. I've been wanting to tell it for a couple of days, so there's been a gap in the news cycle, so I can finally share it with you because I don't know how much of a headline it is. We'll see. But of course, as you know, China is a burgeoning film industry. And I think it's very interesting because it's so new in the days of their film industry. It's not so set in stone. The establishment isn't in place. They can't really keep out people who aren't in the know, who are part of their group, which I think is a little bit of a problem with Hollywood today. So because they're so new, and the Chinese film industry is trying to find its way and just produce successful films, you're seeing some people get into the film industry over there that I think would have a much more difficult time here in the United States. Now, of course, John Green is a Hollywood star, and he has a big movie coming out this weekend, The Fault in Our Stars. But as he said on his channel, he doesn't get any money from that film. He's already sold the rights. That's his only paycheck. And so he's really just along for the ride. And he's also being extremely kind in helping this film so much publicity-wise on his own, touring for it, promoting it on his channel. Although I'm sure, I hope it does. I hope this helps John Green's career down the line. So that's a great example of a YouTube star here in the United States who can work with Hollywood. But in China, the YouTube sensations, or their versions of, their social media stars, are doing even better. And the person in the news is Han Han. Now, apparently he is really big on Weibo, which is China's version of Twitter. He has 40 million followers. And he's actually directed a movie. Now, so far, what I can glean, I'm not that familiar, obviously, with China's social media scene, but I did some digging on this because the story interested me so much. But apparently Han Han is a political commenter, so I think that's amazing that he's able to continue his career in China. He has a little bit of a bad boy image, apparently, because he's a political commenter in China. And also, he's apparently a race car driver on the side, a professional race car driver. I love that the description of him says that's what he does on the side. But he's primarily a social media star. And clearly, as you can see, he has a political conscience. And so it's interesting that not only has he been allowed to direct a movie, a big movie that's getting a big release in China, but that it's not like some, crazy, silly movie. But neither is John Green's, by the way. That has a very, serious, message to it. Undercurrent of, fighting cancer and cancer awareness, especially for teenagers and children with cancer. But Han Han is doing a film also that has a serious through line, and it's about 3 friends who go on a road trip to, kind of grapple with their ideals. And I think that's a very interesting situation. It sounds like a very, very good movie, and I think it probably speaks to what a lot of people in China are going through now as that country changes, not just in its film industry, but as, there more cash comes into the economy, the growth of a middle class. Those are very transformative situations for any country. They certainly did a lot to change the United States back when that happened to us, I think primarily after World War II, because we bombed out every other country and we were the only ones who could produce anything. I think that's a whole other fascinating conversation as to how World War II led to the growth of the United States, because we were isolated from the destruction of World War II. But now, of course, China is going through, I think, a different thing brought it about, but they're going through a similar situation. So I think that's great that Han Han is reflecting that in his movie. Time has recently listed him as one of their most influential people, and you can see him continuing to want to do that. And I think it's very admirable. He could have just tried to make a box office smash, a light concoction that would maybe be a little bit of an easier sell, but he hasn't. And maybe that is exactly what he needs to do to please his followers and, not disappoint them. So I put links below in the video description to where you can watch this trailer for his movie. It's called, in English, it's called Duckweed. The film is in mainland Chinese. I'm assuming it's in some form of Chinese. I'm sorry, I can't tell you exactly, but it is subtitled. The trailer is subtitled, I believe. And again, it's called, no, I think actually it's not subtitled. No, it's not. So you're just going to have to guess at what they're saying. But it's called Duckweed if it ever gets a release here in the United States. But I think it's really interesting to just see this at play. And it's let's see here. The film is being released by Bona Film Group, which actually 20th Century Fox owns 20% stake. And this is their second social media star that they've inducted into their ranks. The first is, please excuse my pronunciation, Guo Jingming. And he is apparently Han's social media rival. They're like the two big names. And he's made these movies called Tiny Times. They're like two of them, and they've been both very successful. And they're interesting because I watched that trailer as well. There'll be a link to that below that you can check out in addition to the Duckweed trailer. And this one's funny to me because it's like the Chinese version of Clueless. But I think a little bit more. No, you know what? Clueless had a lot of commentary. I think Amy Heckerling did a great job. And I think that Guo Jingming is doing a similar, quality job that, very insightful, but yet fun. And actually, his films, apparently, Tiny Times, came under some fire in China because people feel they're a little frivolous and they glorify materialization, labels, designer elements, etc. But again, that's what happens when you have an emerging middle class and people have money to spend. That's how it changes a country and a people. So it's interesting to see China go through these growing pains and to see it reflected in their film industry. And so I just like the correlation. It hadn't occurred to me before, even when I was initially writing up my notes to this, that we have John Green also doing quite well here from YouTube and Hollywood as well. So it'll be great to see social media maybe faster than we would like. Than we think. Of course, we want it to move fast, but I think YouTube has had a bit of a problem gaining respect from the established media. And maybe it's not a matter of respect. Maybe it's trying to protect what they've already built, and they can see how powerful the social media people are. So those are today's top 3 stories. Let's go into that viewer question that I promised you. This is from Felicia B. Felicia B has asked this several times, so I thought today, and I would give all of us our comic book movie dose. So Felicia says, Dear Grace, with X-Men Apocalypse possibly focusing on the Middle East in the 1980s, do you think we will see more diverse mutants playing a bigger role? I honestly can't think of any Middle Eastern mutants apart from Apocalypse, but perhaps the Afghani Dust, that's her name, Dust, may be a good choice as her powers can truly shine in such a setting. Maybe as a potential horseman, though I predict that's what they'll do with Storm. Oh, really, Felicia? I don't think Storm has any history as a horseman. I think that's probably still going to be Wolverine or Gambit, but I'm curious as to why you think that. If you're watching, Felicia, please share your theory down below, and it would certainly be interesting to see. But she continues saying, I know Singer is adding more diverse mutants as we saw in his future. Yes, that's true. The Future Mutants in Days of Future Past was a very diverse group with Warpath, Blink, recast as an Asian character. That was Fan Bingbing, of course, from China. And then you had Bishop and Sunspot. So yes, that's true. It was a very diverse cast. And isn't that great? I hope, I didn't even think of that because I'm getting so used to wanting to see that it's just like, oh, that's the way the world is. Nice to see it finally reflected. So good catch, Felicia. So Felicia continues saying, but I still find the ones who have a particular purpose and carry their individual scenes are Americanized, like Quicksilver and Colossus. That's true. Where's Colossus's Russian accent and him saying snowflake all the time? That stuff matters. So Felicia says, though I do acknowledge that Nightcrawler was a clear ethnic exception in this. Kind of. I don't know. I think they did have the gypsy elements there, I believe. But I thought that Nightcrawler, I think they went off the track. I think that was a character we're trying to make him appropriate to his background. Actually was a distraction from the character itself. But anyway, Felicia says, I love your show and keep up the amazingly thought-provoking work. Felicia XX. Felicia, that's such a nice thing for you to say. Thank you very much. And I really like your question. I think it would be nice to see more diversity, especially when you have a cast like X-Men, which is so large. They can bring in diversity without the Hollywood suits having to get nervous. But will we see a lead role of diversity? Well, of course, obviously you mentioned Storm. I think, of course, they'll have to recast that role finally. A lot of you wanted to see Lupita Nyong'o. Some people are saying, oh, maybe she can do both. She can be in Star Wars and X-Men. I don't think that's the case. I think Disney will want to make sure that she stays largely with their, with their in their wheelhouse. She's even doing a voice in their Jungle Book movie, I believe, for Jon Favreau. So again, that's Disney. We'll see whose Jungle Book movie gets there first, Disney's or Warner Brothers with Andy Serkis. I believe, yes, the other Jungle Book is Warner Brothers. But anyway, Lupita Nyong'o is very busy, and she's very busy for Disney. So I wouldn't expect her to go over to Fox, and they're going to have to find another actress. But I saw actually some Photoshop work of Zoe Saldana, although Disney's gotten her as well. So Fox better start looking for this young storm right now, or there's not going to be anybody left. But then they could always discover a new talent. Wouldn't that be refreshing? But anyway, I hope that Storm becomes the strong character she's supposed to become. But as for your choice of Dust, I don't see why not, Felicia. I think there are so many, little small roles in these mutant films that Bryan Singer could clearly have her just come in for a moment. Look at all the mutants he was able to tease in X-Men Days of Future Past in that Vietnam sequence. So I think to have Dust show up would be a great idea. Dust is a very interesting character. For those of you who don't read the comics, she is Afghani. She wears the robes. I think it's a hijab, correct? I'm trying to get the right term. But because by choice, it's her belief and where she comes from, and she has the ability to. I think her name is Suraya, actually. Now that I think about it, and she was one of the the new X-Men. They always along with Mercury and Anatoly and Rockslide, all that like new group of mutants, and she has the ability to create a dust storm and even turn herself into like sand. And she's an interesting character, but they never really found, I think, a really good way to utilize her, even in the comics. So she's a tough character to show, and I think that Marvel's doing a better job with their American Middle Eastern character in the Ms. Marvel comic. And Felicia, I'd be curious to know if you're reading that comic. If not, I think you should definitely pick it up. It's very well realized, and I think that book was actually written by a female author who actually she's white, but she's converted to Muslim. And she does a really good job of, showing this Middle Eastern character's, conflict with her homeland, her people, her parents, and her religion, and her, her societal structure. Very interesting comic. And so if they can maybe apply that to Dust in the movie, that would be great. I don't see it happening so much because this movie has so much on its plate already, this franchise, but at least they could give her a shout out, right? And I think if you're looking for that Middle Eastern development, perhaps the place you're most likely to see it is with Apocalypse. Let's hope he is a well-developed character. As I said in my sneak peek of Apocalypse, X-Men Apocalypse for 2016, if they're going the historical route in the 1980s, that's a very interesting time for the Middle East, and I hope that is explored. I hope that Apocalypse is cast by an actor who can do a great job, and he isn't just a mysterious figure standing in the background waving his arms around, and then everybody else just runs in and says, okay, pay attention to us now, we're the real stars. I would love to see a James Bond-esque realized villain who, shows, and maybe Dust could be part of his entourage. I think the royal and figures, and I think in the Middle East in particular, I think Apocalypse would consider himself a royal figure, have these entourages, so why not put Dust in there? But as for any sincere character development, I would not expect that. Maybe we'll get that someday in a television show, because of course we all heard that Fox is trying to do something with TV with their mutants because it's just such a large universe. Maybe we'll get a lot of you have been asking me about a Teen Titans movie. Maybe we'll get, the students at Xavier School, just like there's a SHIELD television show and a Gotham television show that's coming up. That would be a great way to kind of keep people in the universe without having to worry too much about the movies, to just focus on the students at the Xavier Institute, while the professors are off fighting the world and saving the world. So actually, now that I think about it, that would be a very good idea. So Fox should get on that. I would watch that. And since they're new mutants, they don't have to know their powers that well, etc. And that would be a great place for Dust to show up and to be well realized. Thank you so much for your question, Felicia. I hope you found my answer thought-provoking. That was such a nice thing for you to say. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody else, for tuning in. Write down what you think of today's top 3 stories and the viewer question, and anything you'd like to see covered on Monday, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.